Hello, and welcome back to Redefine Your Life. Today, our episode is an interview with my friend Jill. And before we get into the episode, I just wanted to give you a little bit of background about Jill. She is a folk herbalist and aspiring homesteader. After 2 years of traditional college and recognizing that a conventional lifestyle wasn't the path for her, she traveled to India and Costa Rica to study up on yoga, meditation, and organic farming. Upon her return to the States, she developed an interest in herbal medicine and devoted 3 years to study in the Green Mountains of Vermont. Today, Jill spends her time working seasonally with the plants, foraging, growing, and making medicine out of the herbs that are available in her bioregion. When Jill isn't making herbal medicine and working on her homestead goals, you'll likely find her pursuing secondhand shops, seeking out treasures of old to spruce up and resell at their true value. Jill lives in Western New York with her partner Jesse, where they plan on building an intentional homestead. You can keep track with Jill on her Instagram at Revive the Wild. Follow her on her journey and stay up to date on her herbal and secondhand offerings. Thank you so much for being here, and we hope you enjoy the episode. And let us know if you have any follow-up questions about our topics today and any future topics we talk about. Thank you guys. Blessed be. Hello and welcome. Today we have a special guest joining us, my friend Jill, who would love to share with us a little snippet about the lovely tea she made.
So we're drinking an herbal tea of a few different respiratory herbs because we were having some like coughing things come up, little tickles in our throat because we're on a farm. So there's a lot of dust and different things floating in the air here. So I made an herbal tea that would support our respiratory system. And this is a blend of a few herbs, including
Yumminess.
Yes, we've got mullein, holy basil, mint, and rose petals, because originally I wanted to make us rose for that heart opening effect and connection. And then we really needed that respiratory support. So I put in all of the other herbs, and it just created this beautiful blend of healing. And also my neighbor made a syrup out of lavender flowers and chamomile and just like basically all the flowers growing on her property that were edible. And she threw them into a syrup. So it's sweetened with that. So that's what we're drinking right now.
And it's divine. It is so beautiful tasting. It feels like I put my face into like the most beautiful bouquet of flowers mixed with like, if you could actually taste the honey from the flowers, because I've had a lot of wildflower honey recently, and it tastes different than bees honey, and it's sweet in like a more floral way. So good. Well, thank you for sharing that yumminess with us and with me. Today we're going to talk a little bit about you though, and what it is that you are cultivating here in this home space that you currently call home, the space you currently call home, and with your partner, and how you envision this being the stepping stone to the life that you are co-creating together. So if you'd like, we're going to get into that, but first we're going to start with, what does spirituality mean to you?
This has been such a journey for me. Right now, I'd say spirituality is like just making sure that I'm staying in the present moment. I gotta say, like right now, the present is where it's at for me. And also I've had a lot of animal spirit guides come into my life recently. Like hummingbird has really been literally knocking at my door and coming inside of my house and spending time with me here. So I guess like signs and symbols would be a part of my spirituality. And yeah, just making sure I'm in the present moment and absorbing like what life has to offer me. Like there's spirituality in these cherries that we're eating, and there's spirituality in the connections that I'm making. And yeah, it's very like tactile, practical, but also like looking for those signs and messages, or just being open to when they're appearing in my life, such as with the hummingbird.
Yeah. So it sounds like being grounded and present to take in those messages as they come. in your surroundings, but more than that, actually connecting with the things around you, like your food and the ground and the earth
Yes.
and everything that surrounds
Oh,
you.
totally.
Living.
Food, especially. I'm glad you brought food up. Yesterday, I was preparing a meal for myself and a couple other people, and I wanted to put my energy into a space of being rather than doing. So rather than, oh, I'm making this meal, I'm doing this chopping and I'm doing this like cooking, I wanted to be in the receptive mode and receiving something from the process of making the meal. So I was able to like shift my energy just by thinking I am receiving from this process. And it was really beautiful. So I'm glad you brought up food, because that's like, yeah, that's totally also a love language for me is food and like eating food, preparing food for others.
Yeah, because of how much can go into that. And how much, I mean, you can feel the love in food when you eat it, but you can also feel the love in food in the presentation of it.
For sure.
You're sick, you're not feeling well, someone brings you food, and it's not just that they're bringing you soup, it's that they're bringing you something with the intention to heal you and the
Totally.
intention to support your body and your vessel and energize and
Yes.
nourish. Love that.
Yeah.
Absolutely love that. Yeah, spirituality can feel like nourishment. I love that. So what started your spiritual journey?
Okay. It was like high school time. So about 10, 11 years ago, because I'm 28 now. I was really like, I was a big animal rights activist and still love and care for animals quite a bit. But back then I was really heavily into like PETA, and I was a vegetarian. I was vegan for a little while. And ultimately, further down the line, that didn't work for my body. But it was definitely like a bridge for me, because I became close with a teacher in high school who was interested in yoga and meditation. And I spent a lot of time in his classroom, basically to like escape my schooling. Like I would go there like way too often. And it was like a retreat space for me. And so I just like picked up the energy from him almost in like a fatherly sort of way. And then he started going to India to practice yoga, and he became certified to teach, and he became certified in like different forms of meditation. And then I went to India and I did the same program that he went through. And I became certified as a yoga teacher, and ultimately decided not to be a yoga teacher. But then that like opened up this whole world for me that I didn't know existed. And I just started dabbling more and more into everything that like the esoteric life has to offer, and eventually found herbal medicine and intention. I think intention is really big. And that's been like the short story of my path for sure.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Totally.
So we're going to talk a little bit about what you're co-creating here.
Okay.
If you could, in whatever way feels right to you, help us see your vision. Help us see what it is that Jill is currently working on manifesting.
Yes. So right now we're living on a beautiful farm out by Lake Ontario, and the journey that took us here, it's still unfolding. It's an ever unfolding journey. And this is definitely a stepping stone to where we want to be. And this one is huge because we're being supported in so many ways by our community. And there's people who really care about us and our path. And I'll explain what that is. But this is like a really, really tiny space. So it's bringing up so much for us, and like the good, the ugly, all of it. But long term, what we really envision ourselves doing is creating a really big homestead. We want to homestead.
Yes.
And I mean, there's so much that I can say about what the homestead is going to offer. Essentially, we want to create this homestead that's going to be so much more than a homestead, because we want to shift the paradigm of what it means to be human right now and return to living in the old ways, the traditional ways of growing your own food, of preserving your own food, and relying on the interconnectedness of community and neighbors. So the goal isn't necessarily to be completely self-sufficient and self-sustaining, but to be community sufficient and community sustaining. And some of the ways we want to do that, my partner, Jesse, he's really, really passionate about growing perennial foods. So things like fruit trees. And obviously you can't really live a stable life just on eating fruit, especially up here in New York. We only have such a short season where the fruit is ripe. So then you get into things like producing nut crops. And when you have him on the podcast, he'll tell you all about chestnuts and acorns and all the things that you can do with chestnuts and acorns and hazelnuts and the things that he wants to grow. And then for me, it's more so about like, I'm definitely more in my feminine, and I want to be like the hearth and home tender. I like really get off on tending a good home space and creating nourishing, healthy meals. So nutrition is a huge part of our life.
Do you want to share a little bit about the basics of herbalism?
For the basics of herbalism, I would recommend anybody who wants to learn to find someone who has practiced and just follow them around and start doing things herbally with them, like make a tincture together or just go out and identify plants together. That's a really good way to get started with herbalism. I actually went to a training. It was like a 9-month program, but I did that 3 times. So I consecutively had like 27 months of herbalism training in person. And you don't necessarily have to go and do that because there's so much information online, and self-study, I think, is really underrated as long as you make sure you're identifying plants properly. And like if you're going out into the wild or just in your backyard and harvesting plants, like you want to make sure you're correctly IDing what you're picking. And one plant in particular, Queen Anne's lace, is a wonderful digestive bitter. So it's great for the digestive system and breaking down food. It's also known for women's reproductive support, for like bringing on blood. Like if you're wanting to bring on your menstrual cycle, you can take the Queen Anne's lace, but it has a lookalike that is deadly poisonous. So that's like, I don't want anybody to be afraid of herbal medicine and like crafting their own things, but there are things to be mindful of, like potential poisonous plants out there in the world. But yeah, like one of my favorite things about herbal medicine is like the sovereignty that comes with that, and the empowerment of knowing if you are having a tickly throat, I can go to my little cabinet over there and grab the herb that I know is going to support you for your tickly throat. It's like, it's just so empowering to support not only myself, but my friends and my family with something other than a pharmaceutical or an over-the-counter medication. It's like the earth provides, and we get to interact with her and receive medicine from her, and we can also give back to her in other ways too. So I guess that's like, it's like the basics, and there's so much more. We could do a whole podcast episode on it, right?
I feel like that would be a good time to get into like your top 3 favorites and talk a little bit more in depth about how to be intimate with the earth and how to receive and give, and just almost like co-mingle with the elements that are already around us in a way that is empowering, like you said, where now it's not just going up and picking up a dandelion to blow it and make a wish. It's actually making dandelion tea or making a salve,
and you can still blow the dandelion and make a wish while making your dandelion tea, and like cooking the leaves in the spring is like one of the best things we can do for our livers. Eat them too, right? Yes. Yeah. And after winter, we've been eating, traditionally humans were eating heavier foods in the winter because they were eating the crops that they stored from summer and fall, which is like potatoes, squash, beans, Maybe they grew corn and they dried and ground down the corn, and they were eating like a lot of cornmeal cakes and things like that, and mash.
Mhm.
So traditionally we were eating really heavy foods in the winter, and springtime was a natural time for the body to detox and like shed the extra weight that we may have put on, because it's natural to put on some weight in winter. And dandelion is like one of the most perfect herbs for doing that, like draining of the pipes, I like to call it, with the lymph, and because dandelion is like a huge lymph mover. And
isn't it diuretic too? Or no, that's chamomile.
No, dandelion is diuretic.
Oh, it is too.
Yeah,
okay.
it can have diuretic action. A lot of herbs do. Dandelion is one. A lot of like the springtime tonics like dandelion are diuretic, because they're helping to pull all of those excess like the minerals and liquids that built up out of the body.
Yeah, and through the liver and the kidneys, they're going to detox, so it makes sense that it's going to make you pee.
Yeah, for sure. Can help you go number 2 too.
Yeah,
I've heard with dandelion.
Oh good. So, dandelion is also a laxative, fair warning. Can be a laxative. This is not medical advice. What do you feel is your biggest takeaway from following this path and committing your life to this learning?
I guess like I would call it my deepest meaning, maybe. Like what's the deepest meaning that I take out of it? And for me, that's living a life of like true humanness, like what it really means to be a human, and not be so distracted by like the pretty flashy things that modern society offers us. And not to say that I don't use those things. Like I have my like my handheld frother for my morning coffee that I like froth my milk into, and like I use technology, of course, but I think there's something really special about returning to traditional lifestyle practices that connect us with what it means to be a human on planet Earth, barefoot, grounded, connected to the elements and the seasons. And really like an effect of that directly is being more in tune with your body as well, because we're cyclical beings, especially as women. We go through a cycle every month, every approximately 30 days. And so when we tap in with the rhythm of the earth, it helps us to tap in with our own rhythm as well. So yeah, I just love being an earthly being, and my herbal journey has really connected me with the earth and in all of the ways, and the elements and everything. And I could go on even longer about that too.
Yeah, I can tell how passionate you are about it and how much this means to you. So it's so admiring to hear about your journey, and also to just feel how passionate you are about it, and the joy and the inspiration that this is going to give other people to follow that calling from the heart and just make those choices to align with it, right? Making a choice to continue learning about herbs, and making a choice to search a little bit on the web and find a mentor that you can learn from, like making the choice to do something different than with your life than you've already been doing. Like that's the shift in the timeline. That's when the paradigm shifts. When instead of going day to day doing the same thing that you've been doing, which there's nothing wrong with the way that you've been living your life, but if you want to change, you have to make a choice and change it.
Yes.
And follow up with that. And it's so amazing how that one little choice, with even just reaching out to a mentor and having that connection made, will change your whole projection of your life and will continue to fuel where your life goes, where your attention goes, where you learn, where you spend your time is where your life will go.
Absolutely. And sometimes for some people, it's even just like going outside more and, immersing yourself in the elements, in nature, and like receiving your inspiration and even wisdom from walking outside. And I think getting barefoot on the earth is like a really awesome practice, and an underrated one. Like I'm rarely ever wearing shoes in the summer when it's hot out. I just love feeling that connection between myself and the earth. And I think making little choices like that, even if it's not, I mean, finding a mentor is so helpful and wonderful. But just remembering there's like other little things that we can do on a daily basis to find that inspiration that could turn into like a pivotal point in our lives. For me, like honestly, travel was a big pivotal point too, because not only did I go to India, but I went to California and I got to see Yosemite National Park. And that just blew my mind open for what was even there in the United States. Like not having to leave the country, but seeing what is within this country and the beauty here. And the expansiveness that Yosemite showed me was like a direct effect on the expansiveness of my mind and like what's possible in this life, and how much we can tap into being human that we don't get to tap into in normal daily societal life of getting up, going to work, doing the daily things. So that was kind of a tangent, but
no, it's okay.
Yeah,
I liked it.
Yeah, I'm glad.
And we're not the traditional working man.
Exactly.
Right? Like it brings different meaning to a day's work. It can be a day's work, but it can also be something that is fueled from a heart-centered place and is grounding you along the way, right? And teaching you along the way. Absolutely. Definitely nourishing you along the way.
Totally.
Oh, I love that. If anyone watching is trying to get more involved within their communities or trying to support other people that might be doing these types of startup ideas with either agriculture or community, how would you suggest that they get more involved, and what would you want people to be looking into? If you want to talk a little bit about CSAs. Yes.
Yeah. So there's also a really great website. I think it's called localharvest.org.
Local harvest. It sounds familiar.
I think that's what it's called. We can look it up and then put it in the show notes. That's a really great place to start to see like who's growing food locally. That is what I started doing years ago. I just wanted to know, okay, like where is my food coming from? Who's growing it? What are their growing practices? I'm a big believer in like not using pesticides or herbicides or any chemicals at all, really. And so I went on there and like typed in, okay, like organic food near me, and found all these farms in our area growing organic food. So that's a good place for people to start. And then, go to farmers events. Like if someone, in your community is hosting like a U-pick, go pick their fresh fruits from their cherry trees, or strawberry season just passed as well. Yeah, like Jesse and I, we want to grow all the foods and have people be able to come over to our property and pick whatever it is that we have in season at that time. I imagine having like every week be like, I had a name for it,
like the pick of the week.
Yeah, something like that. Like just whatever is in abundance and needing to be harvested. Like we have an event that day where it's like a pop-up shop where other vendors can come and like set up their things that they have to sell. And we're maybe doing like an educational thing. That's another thing too, like going to people's workshops and interactive settings, I think are really great for you to not only support farmers and growers, but to also learn something yourself and have an interactive experience where you're getting your hands in the mix, and I think a lot of us are hands-on learners, right? So being able to go and like, just simply pick your own cherries, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, there's that's amazing there. Yeah, and you get to pick the fruit. I mean, how fun is that?
So like fun for kids, especially.
Oh like, yeah, get the family involved. Yes. I love that. Yes, get the family involved. Get your friends involved. Take your mom.
Take everybody.
Take your grandma.
Take a whole busload of people. But I'm trying to think if there's anything else support-wise. I mean, in the permaculture community, there's these days called like permaculture blitz, where you get a bunch of shovels and whatever tools you need, and everybody just goes to like this one person's property and they all work together to make the project happen. So say you want to build like a like a new herb garden in the shape of like a mandala.
Mm.
Say that could be a fun project to do.
Mhm.
And then everybody would go blitz that property and work together on digging or like a spiral. Let's call it a spiral. Like everybody would work together to dig the spiral, and then you'd go and have a break and eat some snacks, drink some lemonade, and then get back to it and actually like plant the herbs in the herb spiral, and then you share a potluck meal after. Like that's a way to support somebody that you also get to like get your hands dirty, do some work, and then have a community event together and like eat a meal and share some lemonade.
Love that.
Yeah, that's
So
one
beautiful.
example. I'm sure there's so much more, support wise.
Yeah, but you come together, and I know
yeah.
there's community gardens that people
Mhm.
are trying to foster. I know a lot
Yes.
of in bigger cities and things like that. So maybe like Google Community Garden near me. I'm not sure if they want like the organic food near me is great. Pasture raised eggs, meats near me. You could support like find a local butcher.
And local dairy, small dairies. We get our milk from a milk herd share, so it's raw milk, which technically in New York State isn't allowed, but they get around the legalities by offering a herd share. So we essentially own like a portion of the cows, and then we're entitled to their milk. So that's how New York State like small milk operations have gotten away with selling the raw milk, because technically like the people own that milk because we own a part of the cow. We pay for like the room and board essentially. And then there's out here, so we're in like the Albion area near Brockport, and then nearby there's a small farm called Teacup Farm, and they do like low pasteurized non-homogenized milk. And I think that supporting small dairies is a really wonderful way to show them that you support them. And because dairy is getting a really bad rap right now. And I think it's a perfect food. It's got protein, carb, and fat in it when it's not homogenized and when it's unpasteurized. Or like Teacup Farm, they do low pasteurization. So it's very lightly heated. It doesn't destroy or denature the protein of the milk. Like ultra pasteurized milk from the store is just not a good quality milk anymore. And that's why so many people are getting sick off of dairy. It's not necessarily,
it's not that the dairy's bad, right? It's the processing. It's kind of like the quality.
For sure. Yeah. So supporting a small dairy like Teacup Farm is wonderful. And then if you're in New York State, if you're watching from New York, there's more small local dairies, including the Ithaca region. There's Ithaca milk, which is delicious.
It's so good.
And it has the cream on top. It's so good. I actually have some raw milk in the fridge right now.
Love that.
You could try some after if you want.
Okay.
I'm going to change you.
Stay tuned for me videos of me trying
do
raw
some milk sampling. It's really good. It's sweet. Like that's the thing. It's like, it's not like store-bought regular old, like super big conventional dairy milk. It's got like a texture and a flavor to it. It's so good.
Thank you for those recommendations.
Totally.
I love that. I love spreading the word and getting more people involved. And I mean, you could always, if you were looking to start your own home garden too, look up resources online. I'm sure there's an abundance of videos on YouTube that would teach you how to garden and how to create those small things for yourself, even if you don't have an outside space. Even if you only have a couple windowsills, you could still grow some herbs and maybe even some tomatoes and strawberries, something small.
I met a woman yesterday who told me about her patio garden that she made, because she was living in an upper apartment with like the tiniest balcony. And she had a bunch of pots out there, and she grew tomatoes, she grew cucumbers, peppers, herbs. Like she grew a full garden just out of some potted plants on her tiny balcony patio. So
so beautiful.
And what she told me, her like the takeaway I had from that conversation, she said, I am living proof that it's possible. So there it is.
I love that.
It's so possible to grow your own food.
If you want to make it happen, start small. Use the Kaizen model like we talked about in the last episode. Figure out what your obstacles are. Why are you telling yourself you can't do this? You totally can. Do you want to share some of those books?
Yes.
We're going to show you some books, but we can also write all the names of these books in the show notes so that it can make it a little easier.
So some books that have really helped me on my journey. This one is The Gift of Healing Herbs, which is a really awesome, like, anybody could benefit from this book, whether you're a total beginner herbal person or you've been studying for a few years. I love if you want to show it, I love the way that she designed this book. There's recipes in there, there's descriptions of all of her herbs that she highlights in there. Real life stories on how she's applied these herbs. And one of the recipes was actually for a grape leaf vinegar, and Jesse, my partner, has varicose veins. And so we made grape leaf vinegar, and we just put that on like a towel and apply a compress to his varicose veins. And it was so soothing for him. He loved the sensation. And that was from that book. Like I never would have guessed that grape leaves would be this like relaxing, soothing, and astringent like remedy for varicose veins, but it is, because it like tightens up the blood vessels. And anyway, that book is just amazing. There's so many delicious recipes in there.
I love that. I need that book.
Yes. Yeah. And then we've got Eastern Body, Western Mind. This is geared more towards like psychologists, but I think anybody can read it. And it takes you through the chakra system. Really great if you're working with the chakras and want to involve like the psychological aspect of healing as well, and bridging like the gap between Western and Eastern philosophy for healing.
This is like my brand right here.
Yeah, it's so juicy.
I want to be the bridge. Let this book also help you be the bridge.
Yeah.
Be the bridge you want to see in the world.
This is called Bringing Nature Home. And this is about supporting pollinators, which if we don't have pollinators, we don't have food and medicine. So I highly recommend everybody just look into pollinators like bees other than the honeybees, because even though honeybees are amazing, they are European. Honeybees come from Europe, and they're really just like a honey producer. They pollinate some of the plants out here in nature, but for a lot of the native plants that existed before European settlers came here, they require pollination from very specific native to this area pollinators. So their habitat is being decimated with, the amount of like suburban areas and urban areas that are being put up in the world, as well as like farmland, like the monocrop, corn, soy, things like that. They're losing their habitat space. So we can plant all different like flowers and grasses that these pollinators benefit from. It gives them a living space, gives them food, and we can plant them in cities as well. If you have like even a little patch of grass outside of your house, you can transform that into a small meadow that's going to celebrate. I wasn't going to say celebrate, but I meant to say support, but celebrate just came out. Yeah. So support and celebrate these native pollinators and give them a space to live. So
I know butterflies has been on a topic of review recently because of the endangeredness of their species. And
totally.
Who wouldn't love to plant some flowers out your front yard and then see some butterflies?
Yeah. And even birds.
Yeah. Hummingbirds, I mean, lots of birds, little birds though, right?
Yeah, probably smaller birds.
Those cuties. And honestly, I know there's a lot of hatred towards mosquitoes, but mosquitoes also pollinate things. So they're important.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So as much as I want to not like mosquitoes because I felt like they were useless, they have a benefit. Yeah, they pollinate for us. So they actually
I can't justify my anger towards them anymore.
Maybe we could eat them. Protein?
Plant, animal. Yeah, that's a different form of animal protein. I've heard of ant protein, like you can eat.
I've actually heard a lot about crickets recently. There is a local guy at a tent on Bidwell, Bidwell's Farmers Market in Buffalo. And they have
cricket protein
bars. Yes. Yeah. And like also like the actual bug that are like fried and like flavored. So they have like
eat that.
Barbecue crickets, ranch crickets, like just all sorts of cool things. And I'm like, I don't know about that, but I tried it and they were really good. Cookie bar or whatever it was. Yeah.
I'm open, I'm pretty open to trying weird things and doing weird things. So I'm gonna have to try some cricket bars.
Love that.
And then the last one, this one really makes me think of Jesse, because well, first off, he bought this book, but he's always trying to think of ways that we can really sustain and survive off of what we grow. And this is maybe more of an advanced like method, of like growing your own potatoes to store for winter, or where you need like more space than just a patio.
Oh yeah.
But I think that it's still a really great book for anybody to read, because it will spark so many ideas that you've maybe never thought of before, if you're interested in like the back to the land mentality and journey. This is a really awesome book, because not only does it talk about stable crops that you can grow, it also goes into animals you can raise. Not only like if you don't want to eat meat, you can consume their eggs, and eggs are like so nutrient dense. And she also talks about how to maintain the integrity of your body while you're gardening and farming, so that you live a life full of longevity, as well as like flexibility and suppleness. Because, to really thrive in this life, we got to feel good in our bodies. And so she touches on that, which is, I think, just super cool. This is like she goes into exercise and purposeful exercise, warming up and general conditioning, and kind of like relates it to gardening. It's so cool. So there's the Resilient Gardener.
Oh, I love that. The Resilient Gardener.
Yeah.
Beautiful colors there too.
Yes.
Beautiful. We'll close with one last question and take your time to answer. But if you could reach an abundant number of these sweet souls out there listening to us today, and you wanted to share a message with them, what would you want your message to be, or your intention to be, to share with the world?
My message to you sweet souls would be to just have patience and grace on your path, and just be gentle on yourself. And if I could tell my younger self that, I would go back in time and just tell her, there's no need to be so hard on yourself. It's all going to work out. Everything that you dream and desire is going to unfold. You just have to trust the process and keep putting yourself out there, because we can't expect it all to just happen for us. There's like a dance that we do with the universe to create. We co-create with the universe. So just like being open to abundant blessings and receiving, but also doing your part in that process.
Oh, thank you for that. Before we go, want to
Instagram. Yep.
How can they work with you? What are your offerings currently, and how can they connect with you?
So I'm most reachable on Instagram. My username is Revive the Wild, and we'll put that in the show notes. But my current offerings right now are, I am offering like in-person herbal medicine making classes. So that's going to be a consistent thing I do this summer, so long as the herbs are providing and continuing to be in beautiful condition for us to harvest and make medicine out of. I'm always available to just chat. Like I'm not really charging for sessions or anything right now. I'm just still finding my place in like the herbal community and deciding how I want to package what I have to offer. I feel like a little baby herbalist that's still growing. And I think that's how it's always going to feel. Like there's such an abundance of information out there, but just connect with me on Instagram and come to a tincture making class if you're local. And I'm also hoping to create some kind of an online learning platform as well, like potentially a Patreon account or like Zoom classes. I'm not sure yet, but follow me on Instagram, stay up to date, and we'll grow together. We'll just do it.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing all that with us. Thank you for being here, for hosting us, having us in your lovely space.
Thanks for having me on here.
Yeah.
This is like such a pleasure and an honor. I just love your energy so much. And
me too, girl.
This is like a connection that's been waiting to bud and blossom. And we're gonna go hula hoop.
Yeah, we're about to go hula hoop, move our bodies. So get up and move your body today, y'all. We love you. Thank you for being here with us, and we hope to hear from you soon. Connect with Jill, connect with me. Thank you, guys.